I just sat down with Dr. Michelle Todoro, a friend, a child psychologist. She's got her master's and doctorate's degree from York University. She's worked at Sick Kids. She's a proud mom of 2 young girls. She knows so much intel. And I just found this episode so inspiring because she was able to give such tactical, useful skills for myself and hopefully for you guys in order to feel like we can do this as parents. It's a really hard job. And we're always very overwhelmed and thinking that you're not doing it right. And she was able to reduce my anxiety, talk me through every type of issue from ADHD to neurodiversity and understanding the challenges and also the strengths that come with that. Talking about screen time, iPads, TV, all these things that are plaguing us in this world and able to give a lens that was just so refreshing. Well, welcome. I want to say Michelle, but I've never, ever officially called you that, which is creepy. So the reason I don't is because she's T to me, because this connection is a mutual. I feel like we're friends now, though. We are.
We've known each other for a long time.
A long time.
Yeah.
We have a mutual, very good friend, and Osai. And
shout out to Osai.
Shout out to our girl Osai. And she's hilarious. But what's funny is that we both have different groups from university that we really held on to.
Yes.
It's kind of unique these days with relationships. I feel like all you and your girls are still really close. There's 6 of you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Ish, 7, 6 or whatever. Same with us. And it's a long time. Yeah. So we've been at many of parties together, have had many funny conversations. But the reality is you're always T because there's 2 Michelles in the group.
Yes.
And there's a T and there's a B. And we just kept things simple that way. So but now after doing a little bit of homework and reading up on you, I was like, shit, you are Michelle Todoro. You're really fucking impressive. I was just
I'm not.
I knew that you were a psychologist always, and I knew the line of work that you did and children and psychology, all of it. But I was just really you're really impressive. And for me right now, where I'm at, and I think the reason for this podcast in so many ways is that I've realized that I'm so not alone in so many of these things that I'm dealing with and I'm thinking. And it's such a commonality between people right now. And there's so many people talking, but they're not necessarily saying the right things. And I think that's where this whole thing becomes just, at least for me, so overwhelming.
Yeah.
So let's just kind of get into a general, give me a little just recap of who you are.
Okay.
Just what you do on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to go through all your credentials and stuff. We know you're qualified. But just what you do on a day-to-day, what your job is, who you are, and what you kind of do.
Okay. Well, thank you for the intro. Thank you for saying all those sweet things about me. Some are true, some are not. So as you said, I'm a child psychologist. So I am a neuropsychologist and a clinical psychologist, and I work with children and youth primarily. Okay. And when you're a psychologist, you kind of have to declare competency, children, youth, adults. Some people do lifespan, but it's more rare. Usually it's you're either adults or children, youth, because it's 2 different beasts.
Totally.
And
good to keep focused too.
Yeah. And so I do a lot of different things. I started out in community mental health, and I was a psychologist doing treatment or therapy and assessments with kiddos and some consultation. And then after my first kiddo, I couldn't go back. It was just when you have a first kid, everything changes. And especially as a child psychologist, because you start to think wait a minute, how am I supposed to do all these things that I'm telling these parents to do? If I'm working and I was working a long hours, more than 40 hours a week, doing stuff at night and stuff. So I had to rebalance.
Yeah.
And so I started my own corporation and then started to do more consulting work.
Okay.
So I work, I still do some
still with children,
all with children and youth, CANARC, Child and Family Services, which is community-based mental health. They still do consulting work for them.
Yep.
I do work for Anishinaabe Health Toronto, which is an Indigenous organization. So assessment, treatment, or therapy, oversee some therapy programs as well, like DBT, CBT.
Okay.
And do some supervision of other therapists. And then neuropsychological assessment. So I assess kids with really complex issues in ADHD, learning disabilities, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, trauma, anxiety, depression, everything, right?
Okay.
Usually comorbid issues with the kiddos that I see.
Yeah.
And then I do some private work too. So some private practice, like parent consultation
Okay.
and individual therapy with children and youth, and supervision of also psychologists are just starting out of their career and things like that.
Okay. That sounds really great. You're focusing on children. And in general, what is your day like in any of these situations when a parent's coming in with a child and they're like, I don't know, something is different, something is off, the kid's not sleeping, the kid is anxious. Like, that's where you kind of use your field of work and you analyze the wide range of symptoms or experiences or whatever is happening. And you work with the parent then to kind of work on a strategy or anything to help get them from the state of tension or I don't know, right? Like just chaos to something a little bit more balanced for the families, for the
Try.
parents. You
That's
try.
exactly
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's the
Okay.
goal. And it depends on the scope. So sometimes, families might come to us and they really don't know what's going on,
Right.
right?
Which
They
is
they just have a collection of, concerns. Oh, the teacher's saying this and they're not paying attention and they're hitting their brother and there's a lot of
Right.
crying and this and that. And we don't know what's
Right.
necessarily going on. And
Right.
so sometimes we might start with a formal assessment and
Okay.
use like standardized measures to figure out what's going on. Is there like a learning challenge that might be making school extra hard for them, and then that's why there might be behaviors at school like a learning disability, or is it a neurodevelopmental disability like an ADHD that might be,
Right.
or maybe none of that, maybe there's no diagnosis,
Maybe there's just a specific
right?
situation that's agitating the child or this or
Maybe
that.
it's developmentally normal, maybe
Right.
it's a 3-year-old.
Maybe it's a product of divorce and they're stressed or
That's
whatnot.
right. There might be an environmental stressor that they're adjusting to, and may be having some, and every kid's different. Some kids are more sensitive and some kids are less sensitive. There's like a
Right.
really nice analogy that people use is like, you've probably heard this, like the orchid kid versus the dandelion kid
No,
versus
go.
the,
This, I
no,
love plants
I
and
like
flowers and all
this.
this shit. Yeah, let's go.
So it's like, again, like I said, some things might be developmentally normal, but you might have more of an orchid kid. An orchid kid is like a kiddo that is more sensitive. Like an orchid, like really requires specific environmental conditions in order to thrive. But when you have those environmental conditions in play, it's beautiful. It thrives. It's gorgeous. A dandelion kid is like, you can throw any kind of manure, topsoil, whatever on it, it's
Yeah.
going to grow no matter what.
Right.
Dry, hot, right?
Resilient.
Very resilient, gritty. It doesn't really matter the environment, or the environment has less of an effect
Right.
on how it develops, right?
makes sense,
Okay.
yeah.
And then you have tulip kids, which are like in the middle. It's like they need kind of like, water and sun and the proper things, but like they're not as sensitive as an orchid. And, they're not as, let's say, like gritty as
Right.
the dandelion.
I have one of each. I literally have one of each, I feel. And I feel like that's
Okay.
not uncommon, but I
Not
really do.
uncommon. And they say, until you have
Yeah.
more than one child, you really don't understand the concept of temperament.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Until you have
Because
a
they're like-
variety from, you have variation from that.
Right.
How are you? You just think everything is like that.
Yeah. And like
Right?
before
For
you
that
come out,
kid.
you're like, oh, I'm not going to have a kid like screaming and crying. That's not going to be my kid, right?
There's
There's
the
lots of judgment.
the
right?
judgments that I've thrown out at other mothers. And then I've been in the exact same situation. I'm like, shame on you, you little.
Right. And
And
there's
I
like,
just want to kick myself in the ass, but I've been there so many times.
and we all have,
Yeah.
right? Myself included,
Yeah.
right? As a child,
Yeah.
like, and there's like even more self-judging as myself when my kids are like a disaster because
it's your
I'm
field of work,
like,
I guess. Yeah.
really? This
Yeah.
is what I'm helping
I'm
people with?
supposed to-
Cool. Like last night, my daughter's like brushing her teeth and she's like, I'm peeing. I'm like, oh my God, you're 4. We don't pee on the floor. Like, what
Yeah,
are we
like-
doing here? Like, can't lose my mind. Good. Stay calm.
I
But-
can imagine that would be a lot of pressure on you. But also you have to like understand that kids are kids, and regardless of what you do, they're going to do what they want.
That's right.
Right?
Kids are kids. That's exactly it. And they bring to the table a certain temperament.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And so they're born. So no matter the environment, they're born with very, very different temperaments
Right.
often. And when you have 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, you can really appreciate that because maybe the environment has changed over time for
Yeah.
the kids because, there's birth order and this and that. But your parenting hasn't like really drastically changed for all your kids. And you can see how different they are.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just
Oh, yeah.
on their genetic looking.
Yeah.
So sometimes parents come in and there might be like a kid reacting to a stressor more strongly than another kid. And they
Right.
think, oh, there's something wrong with this kid. But it's like, no, it's there's like, they have a different temperament and we have to adjust the way we're going to support them
Okay.
through this stressor. So, I mean, we kind of got away from the question. But the question is, what do I do if someone comes in? Sometimes you start with an assessment.
So I feel like a lot of issues that a lot of parents deal with is that they come in, they have no idea what's going on. They're, like you said, they've done the same thing for the second child that they did for the first, but something's going different. Something's wrong. And my problem right now, too, is that everyone is an expert. Everyone is an educator. We are so inundated with information. It's so overwhelming as a mom. What's happening, I find, is that from someone that's not in that field and is looking for intel and information, when I hear every other person talking about different strategies and things to do, I feel completely lost. And I think a lot of people feel that way. Right. And when they're trying to manage the different temperaments of the different kids, you're trying to use logic to do the same thing you did last time because that worked and it's not working.
Right.
And then you see things online and you're worried that your kid is this or that. And then you find out maybe they are or maybe they're not. And that's kind of the coping and where the next things are. But I think a lot of people get stuck in that. I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I'm inundated with information. It's all over social. It's all over my friends and my chats and all these things. And I don't know where to go, left or right. So how do you know when it's time to go and speak to someone? How do you know when it's time to get into that office? Because sometimes it'll be a family dynamic. Sometimes it won't. Sometimes things are persistent for a bit and then they go away. And it's a big expense to go through all these different types of therapies.
100%.
And sometimes you don't get even the answers that you're looking for. So what are some good key indicators that it's time maybe that if your child is neurodiverse now and you didn't know? For example, I was growing up. I mean, I was diagnosed a few years ago, which has been
because you were diagnosed as an adult?
As an adult.
Okay.
And I don't think my parents would have known, had the resources. I didn't present myself in a similar way to boys. I could sit still, but I had a really big learning problem. I couldn't retain knowledge. I got overwhelmed when I saw large amounts of text. I couldn't sit there. I couldn't focus in the way that I would needed to when math, all those subjects started getting harder and they required more focus and attention.
Yeah.
So I, and now as a parent, is trying to do what I think I should do what's best for my kids. And I actually took both of my kids to get assessed, and my youngest Jones wasn't old enough, but the two older boys were they for sure have ADHD. And these are one of the things, for me, I was getting so frustrated at home that I needed to seek a specialist because I thought something was up. It was causing so much chaos and frustration at home between me and Mark, my ex, and just the kids and everything at that time that it was we need more answers. So I guess it's a lot of people feel helpless and the information they're getting is wrong. So when do you know is a good, like I said before, what is getting them out that door to you or to someone else? What are those indicators that you probably should get them assessed or you might need some additional support at home?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it doesn't have to be an all or none kind of situation. A lot of psychologists too will they'll provide a consultation. If you just want an hour consultation to start with, and then just let them know what you're struggling with. And then most psychologists will say, I feel we can go this route. Maybe you just need some pair consultation sessions. Maybe I just need to teach you some more about, positive behavioral management practices at home. Or, it is a tough time right now because there's a divorce and let's just see it out. I don't think an assessment's necessary. So, it might be a 1 or 2 session kind of thing. I'll give you some tips. Let's try that. We'll see if that works. We'll see if things get better. If not, then maybe we bring them in. Maybe we do an assessment, right? There could be a stepwise approach. But we all as parents have gut instincts, right? And we follow that gut, right? So if you're really feeling like there's something up, there's something I'm missing, there's something I could change and to help more, then it doesn't hurt to go talk to someone. And again, at least start with a consultation. The other, would say indicator is if the teachers at their school are contacting you and saying, they're having some difficulty X, Y, and Z. The teachers usually will let you know.
Right. Because they're in that intimate environment with them. They're seeing how they interact with other kids and if they can focus. And it's funny because one of my kids, they both had different kind of learning things at the beginning, but one was clear ADHD where it's hyperactivity, running around. And the other one different, but had more kind of aligned with me, had problems digesting a lot of information or when things had to get to the next step, forgot the first step, so needed to write things out. So I feel like a lot of these issues that parents are having is once they get the results, what are some of these things too in these fields that they're doing, outside of the home, inside of the home, helping to just ease that overall neurodiverse child feel more safe and more comfortable at home and not at home in social settings. And we kind of were talking a little bit before about because I'm literally at a crossroads. I'm do I go? I had a therapist for my son and we were doing that. wasn't really working that well. And so then I was like, I think I need to go to someone with specific ADHD therapies to help us. If I'm not putting him on meds some more, which I don't feel comfortable doing, my eldest who's 8, then what am I doing? So I'm all set up now to go to one of these clinics. And then we start talking and you started giving me amazing, just like off the top of your head, just things that you do with your daughter, things that you're doing in your life. And I'm like, wow, like these are really good resourceful tools that I could be like switching up in my house now. One of the tips that you told me about waking up early, what you do with your daughter, if you could explain a little bit about that, because I think she's got, if you're comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, like, I mean, so my daughter, I think like you, I think if I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but in our family, definitely like ADHD is a spectrum too, right? Yeah. So I think we have that in our family. Like I have definitely relatives, first degree relatives with ADHD. And so if I don't have it, I'm on the ADHD spectrum. Right. And so I see also like the difficulties with, again, and it's not just, difficulties with focus and self-regulation and hyperactivity and impulsivity, like all what you know of as ADHD. Typical, there's much more to ADHD, and ADHD can also be a superpower, which I do also want to talk about. But so I saw some of those things in my daughter, and she's very, very bright, but like, again, just sitting and doing things that are boring for her are like challenging for sure. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so before I do anything, let's start with these like interventions that are basically good for everyone. Okay. Yeah. But we know specifically can be really helpful for ADHD as well. And they're kind of like adjunct. Okay. So let's start at the top. So we know if you have kiddos with ADHD, I take like what I call like a holistic approach to intervention with my clients and even my own kids in my life, which means I'm trying to come at it from different ways, right? Because, there's all these different camps, there's psychiatry, there's cognitive psychology, there's DBT, then there's like naturopaths and holistic. There's all these different camps.
Which is also overwhelming in itself.
Exactly.
When I've looked into it, because I wanted to go down this natural route and I'm like, I don't even know where to go or who to trust. And then there's not research and studies on some of this more natural stuff. And then you feel a little bit like, am I giving my kid L-lithocene or whatever instead of Adderall? And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Should I test it first? And I'm like,
is it dangerous?
I don't know what's going on. Yeah. So I just feel like that world is also, the holistic world's a little bit scary too.
It is. And there's a lot of like, and again, I think because of my background, my education, I was taught how to digest research and how to like read study and make sense of it. And so that helps me to navigate all that's out there. And if you don't have a PhD and 10 years in studying research, then you would never know how to do that. So you have to kind of rely on the people who have been, taught to do that, which is difficult, right? So top level, we have, one of the most studied intervention, as you talk about, for ADHD is medication. Right. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I don't prescribe. There's a difference between psychologist and psychiatrist. Psychiatrist is a medical doctor. They do some extra extra residency to be able to prescribe and know about mental health. They do assessments. They can diagnose. Some of them do therapy as well. Yeah. But many psychiatrists kind of focus more on pharmacotherapy and medications, and they know all the side effects and everything. So that's great. So if you're getting meds, you're going to go to a psychiatrist. And so we know there is a large, body of literature on the use of psychotropic medications. Usually we're talking stimulant and non-stimulant. Yeah. There's two kind of camps of medications for ADHD that are typically effective in helping reduce the symptoms. But as your experience is very common, you usually have to try more than one medication. You usually have to try more than one dosage. It's not like here's a pill, you're fixed. Yes, right?
Not at all.
And there's often side effects, especially with kiddos, the side effects around like the not eating and they're growing. And that can be a little bit more which is kind of scary.
And that was one of the big reasons. And also my eldest doesn't have a crazy appetite. I mean, he gets ravenous and then doesn't eat. So it's like, I was really nervous about that because I know how it impacted my appetite too. Yeah. So just thinking about that.
And you're being a mindful, good parent by thinking about, the pros and cons. Like this is the other thing. We always need to consider, even when an expert is giving them advice, they have their lane. You always have to consider what's best for your family. Your child best.
And that kind of goes back to anything, like just as like a parent, as a woman, as a person, just trusting what we said before, that gut instinct, like your kid
exactly
and what's going to work, and you have to use all those kind of barometers that have what you understand and then apply this outside knowledge.
Right. So I'm not against meds. For some kids, they need the meds, right? Sure. Like their ADHD is very severe. They're not able to cope at school.
They can't learn.
Right? Yeah. There's like really extreme externalizing behaviors, right? So for some of those kids, the medications are lifesavers,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And so it's always something to consider. Obviously, if you have a kid with ADHD, consider. Okay. And then you're gonna
But
weigh
would you?
pros and
But
cons.
you wouldn't necessarily go. Would that be your first avenue, or would you try some of the holistic things? Like, let's just say in general, like, like
I mean, it's hard to like. Yeah,
it
it's hard
depends
to
on
say.
the kid.
It depends on this kid. It depends on severity. Depends on like how able you are to do the other things. But I
Okay.
think it's totally reasonable to try some of the other things before you try
Sure.
the meds if you're nervous about the meds.
That's great. So that's exactly
Yeah.
where I'm at. And I think that's where a lot of probably people are. If I could do something that could reduce the symptoms at home for right now, at least for me, my like I said, my eldest is 8. He's turning 9. When he's a little bit older and can speak to me more in a way where he's more a little bit in tune with his body. He can be more,
Yeah.
not that he's not articulate, but you know what I mean? In a
Right.
way that can feel like he can understand the effects on him and how he's feeling and be able to just navigate through that world. Right now, I need at home some solutions, and whether
Yeah.
that's going to speak to someone about
yeah.
behaviors that are going to help
Mhm.
or implementing those behaviors at home. So
yeah.
what are some of those maybe behind the scenes, more let's go now the natural, holistic way?
Or
of
other
dealing- or other
alternatives. Yeah.
alternatives.
Okay. So, and let me just say one more thing about
Yes.
meds. Okay.
Yes.
So we don't want to demonize meds too, because like you could always try a medication, like
not work.
especially like these ADHD medications,
Yes.
like stimulants, they're short acting. So you
Yes.
could always try a medication with a kid, and if it's not seeming like it's really
True.
working, or if there's side effects, then you
Off.
take it off. And like if you tried a medication on a kid and it's only like a month or two, do I think that's going to have really crazy long-term
Right.
effects? We don't have any research. to say
Exactly.
about it,
And just so
right?
people know, they have a very limited understanding with different medications like antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds. Those are ones that stay in your system a lot longer.
Yeah.
So you have to wean off them. There's a lot of other factors of how it reacts with you. Whereas ADD, it's one of those meds where it's in your system in the morning, it's out by night.
That's right.
So you do have more flexibility there. And I think there was a lot of ease even knowing that it's not as much as a commitment,
That's
right?
right.
If it wasn't
right.
going well.
That's
So
right.
there is that.
And this is what I recommend, and it's a bit more I would say conservative when I have a kid who has really ADHD, and
Yeah.
especially if the parents are like worried about the medication. I don't know about a medication.
Yeah.
I'm worried about side effects long term. I always recommend something called the double-blind placebo-controlled trial, which is what
1 second, one more time.
double-blind
A double-blind placebo
controlled trial, exactly. Which is what
Like when I give my kid a fake gummy and I tell him it's like
that's it.
an Advil.
That's it. That's exactly.
And then I'm like, oh, really? Your
And
fucking
I
foot
feel
ache went
better.
away, you little liar.
That's right.
Oh, now
That's
everything's
exactly it.
fine. Ugh, okay, good one.
Right. So a really brilliant psychiatrist that I used to work with at IHT, talked more about this to me, and I loved it. And it's really like some psychiatrists, it's hard. You have to find someone that will do it with you because it is a lot more work.
Okay.
And on your behalf too, it's more work. But
Okay.
basically what you do is you get a prescription of sugar pills and a prescription of the stimulant
Right,
or
whatever
whatever
it
that
is,
you're
yeah.
trying. Okay. And you don't know, you're doing like 1 week, or you can do 2 weeks on one and then 2 weeks on the other and then back to the other. And you
Okay.
don't know which 2 weeks are what.
You
as the parent don't know.
Oh, wow.
Kid
okay.
doesn't know. Teacher
Nobody
doesn't
knows.
know.
Doctor knows.
Doctor knows. Doctor knows.
Someone knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's say you're doing 2 weeks on, 2 weeks, the next one, 2 weeks, A, B,
Yes.
A, B. Okay. So you give the kid the whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
After the 2 weeks, you're filling out a questionnaire
Okay.
about their symptoms.
Okay.
Okay. The teacher's filling out a questionnaire about them symptoms.
Okay.
Then you try B. After the 2 weeks, you're filling out the questionnaire. Teacher's filling it. Then
Huh.
you're going back to A, and you're going to see if there actually is a difference between your reports, right? Standardized reports of intention and hyperactivity on the med. Once it gets revealed, you're going to see did the med help, right?
Or was
because
it complete bullshit?
sometimes it's placebo. Sometimes it's placebo. I'm giving them something I think it's going to work. Maybe I'm changing my behavior because I'm
Right.
like, oh my God, this is so great. I've done the right thing, right?
Yes,
Like
mom
I'm
of
such
the
a
year,
good mom. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you may
And
also
then you're
feel so much more
kinder.
relaxed
Yeah,
or whatever it
That's
may
right.
be.
You're
yeah.
more anxious. You're like, I've got this.
Yeah.
And then that in and itself
Is a
has
factor that-
steered the behavior. So, and then if you do find a real big difference, then you also feel a little bit more settled about keeping them on the med because you're like,
100%.
okay, it's working.
Right.
It is. I see it's working.
It's
right?
really smart. It's like almost it's reverse psychology, but it's like in that way. It's like you're starting with two options. You're looking directly at like you're just it's a comparison game.
Yeah, it's
right?
a better
And
comparison.
You're not
more
and
accurate.
with anything in life, you're never really stopping and doing that.
Yeah.
right? You're never stopping and saying today, like as an adult, like I was way more anxious this morning than I would be on a regular Thursday morning because we were filming today or I knew we were doing something.
That's
Like there's just all these things that if
That's
you don't
right.
stop and analyze and actually look at the behavior, you're not really understanding it.
That's right. And there's so many factors that are going to affect. So this is controlling factors. Now, a lot, I'm sure, of child psychiatrists and maybe pediatricians would roll their eyes and be like, oh my God, we don't need to do this because we know the medication works. And like, yes, in larger studies, we do know the medication works, but every child is different.
But we're not right. And we're not arguing that the medication doesn't work. We're not. That we're trying to figure out if the medication is right for my kid.
Exactly.
And if that medication, because you could do it with Adderall versus Vyvanse on the kid and it could have totally different effects.
For sure. And we're saying, do we feel like the treatment effect is large enough for us to feel okay with doing that, right? So that's okay. Meds,
I like
okay?
that.
That's an idea, right? If you really do want to try the meds, but you're a bit more cautious,
good, like easy way to kind of like a little bit of work on the end, but I think that's worth.
On the front end,
worth it. Like
but then you feel better on the
100%
later, right?
Yeah.
So that's one option. So let's say meds aside, okay. So then there's a large body of literature that also supports parent training for ADHD. Okay. So that is you're working with a psychologist or a social worker or specialist in ADHD, a psychotherapist, to learn ways in which you're going to help better support your child. Okay. With different parenting, behavioral management strategies. And so we're talking structure, consistency, positive behavioral management. So we're catching them when they're doing good. We're using our punishment or consequences really sparingly, in specific ways. We're setting the stage. At beginning of parent management training always starts with the relationship. Like there's different types of parent management trainings, there's different like modalities, but like across the board, one thing is we're setting the stage. We're setting the stage for having a good relationship with your kids, so they want to comply with your requests. Forget about neurodiversity, right? It's like and that's a lot of work sometimes, especially when you've been like, stressed out and you're yelling, like not everyone's yelling, like everyone's, we don't yell, but we shouldn't yell, but we do, right? It's like, especially if you've been in that coercive cycle where you're telling them to do something, they have ADHD, they're like, I'm not listening to you, right? You're telling them again, you're raising your voice, then they're just either like really saying like, I'm not doing it now, or, they raise their voice back and then so on and so forth. We have this coercive cycle. Yeah. And so when we get stuck in that, right, it tarnishes the relationship. And then we're not starting off on a great pace.
There's conflict and there's tension and you're not so you neutralize the situation first.
So first we're going to look at, focusing on the relationship and improving the relationship with the kiddos, right? And like, again, everyone has been there. I've been there with a kid. I remember specifically with my daughter, and I think it was more over Kumon that we were like getting into this.
Kumon. Oh my God.
This is not an endorsement of Kumon, yay or nay, but
I don't know. But I'm dealing with the same shit, so I got you. Yeah.
I had her in because she was starting French immersion. I'm like, okay, I have to make sure I want her to read in English first and whatever. So we're doing Kumon, and she was like really like didn't want to do the Kumon, and it was always a battle, and it was really weighing on a relationship, and I had to like take a step back and is like, what's my goal here? Right. Like, I don't really care if she does a Kumon if it's gonna like if we're gonna hate each other. Yeah. And she's now more snippy at me, and I had to like really remove myself. My husband gave my husband it because I needed like not space to be in that coercive cycle with her, and I just needed to like be repair really, and like not be giving her just doing like, what do you want to do with mommy instead of like, let's not do Kumon, what do you want to do with mommy, let's play, right? And we talked a little bit about play, but we'll talk more about play. But so getting that relationship with like special time where they get to pick one-on-one, and that's hard when you have more than one kid, especially when you have 3-4 kids.
Okay, so that would be one of your first strategies. One would be to neutralize the environment first. Work with, if you were doing a different approach, work with a therapist and neutralize, someone trained to help get the barometer down to 0, actually get to understand the kid. And then your first suggestion is the one-on-one time.
Yeah. So,
okay, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So you work with a therapist maybe to shift how you're parenting. Right. And one of those shifts will be to increase one-on-one time and really try to make sure the relationship is at a good place before you do anything else. Then the other behavioral management like strategies that therapist might work with you on for ADHD would be around like setting up structure and routine in the home.
Okay. So
Okay.
as someone with ADHD,
That's right.
so it's like I'm literally preaching to the choir and I'm trying to control children that like have the same issues as me. So I'm
Mhm.
finding if my mornings aren't structured and in that way that needs to be, then it's complete chaos for everyone.
That's right.
So, and I can then only imagine how they must feel as little kids being directed by someone that feels that way and then also feeling that internal conflict. So,
Right.
talk to me a little bit about that because I feel like a lot of people want more structure in their life and try to aim for it and want that. And we'll get into the free play thing because I think it's so important when we talk about structure and free play, like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
go
yeah.
hand in hand. Is that everyone wants a routine. Everyone wants their kid to feel like they know what's coming up next. And, this is our mornings during the week and this is our weekends and to make them feel safe and comfortable.
That's right.
But that doesn't always happen.
How do we do that? That
That's
sounds great.
easy said, hard to achieve. So
yeah.
if I don't literally take care of myself in the morning, then I honestly can't take care of other people.
That's
I can
critical.
get the job done. They'll get to school,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not the best version of myself.
100%.
And I feel with kids, then you're not the best version of yourself. They're starting off their day with you not being the best version. There's that tension. So
For sure.
talk to me a little bit about just some good in-home structured routines or things that can help neurodiverse or in general families that are having a lot of kids and a lot of different personalities and temperaments feel a little bit more organized or in control.
Okay, so we want to, when you're like have kiddos with ADHD,
Yeah.
and of course, if you have an ADHD brain, this is going to be harder for you.
Yeah.
But we're trying to structure like the main kind of points in the day. So we're trying to structure morning time, right before school,
Yeah.
getting it. We're trying to structure dinner time. We're trying to structure bedtime.
Bedtime, yeah.
Let's
Okay.
just
Yeah.
focus on
Yeah.
those ones, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be every minute of the day. It doesn't have to be structured. We're
Right.
just kind of making those routines. And what does that look like? That looks like we're going to put in effort in order to wake the kids up at the same time.
Yeah.
Every day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're going to put in effort. Maybe it's putting their clothes out the night before, if that's
Yeah.
what works
Yeah.
for them,
Yeah.
right? So, and we're doing this the same every day,
Okay.
right? So every night, part of their bedtime routine is putting their clothes out. So in the morning, you waking them up at 7 or whatever time.
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. They're putting their clothes in. The next part of the routine might be, okay, everyone's downstairs and they get to choose their breakfast
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we're all eating here.
At the same time, at the same place.
Yeah, or if it's like if we're eating on the front TV, whatever, but we're all eating, it's the same thing every single day. So it's not, you're waking them up different times of the day. It's like, oh, what are we wearing today? Oh, yeah, it's like you're trying to pre-plan as much as you can to control the chaos.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And make things go smoothly for yourself and the kids. Now, sometimes, like you said, a good important point is you need time for yourself sometimes first,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
First, you
So
need
you're waking
to
up at
put your
5.
mask.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, sometimes that does mean you need to wake up earlier if you need to do, your whole ritual
Right.
first to feel
Full.
full and ready to take the kids on,
Mhm.
which again is a commitment. And that means you have to, commit to getting to bed at a certain time,
Right.
right? And like I'm bad at that too. Like I've been setting an alarm, my alarm goes off at 11:30, get into bed. Like, am I ever in bed? No. And
Yeah.
but I'm trying
Right.
to be more consistent with that because sleep is
So important.
critical for
Yeah.
ADHD brain as well.
Mhm.
Really protecting sleep and having like a nice, more rigid routine around sleep
Okay.
is really going to help
Okay.
yourself and your kids with ADHD.
Okay.
Okay. So, structure. So,
Structure, morning,
Structure,
night, so that
yeah.
the kids just have some type of understanding what's coming next.
what's coming next, and it's the same every time.
And then
Yeah.
it's a good night's sleep. And for kids that are like, let's say, I don't know, like kids should be going and getting how many hours of sleep?
I'm not a
what's-
sleep expert, but I think it's like 10 to 12
Right,
in the
that's
little
right.
ones.
And it's for
Yeah.
kids that require more. Okay, because there's this huge thing, and I think this brings me, actually, I want to start off by saying this. It's called like decision fatigue. Like I have it with everything I do. And I think that's whether you have a neurodiverse brain or not. It's
Yeah.
like everything is coming at you so quickly these days.
Yeah.
And the first thing you do, you think about it in the morning, you get up, you look at your phone to turn off your alarm, and then how are you not going on Instagram? How are you not checking your email? It's already there in your hand. So then they're like, oh, put your phone in your bathroom.
Mm.
So I do that, and I don't fucking hear it going off. And then I'm late in the morning. I'm like, that didn't work. I'm supposed to be all like, kumbaya in the morning. No, I'm stressed. I'm running around. I'm waking up late. And so I was like, so I'm like, I need an alarm clock, Lanny. You need an alarm clock.
you
Okay,
need
so
an
that's what
alarm
I
clock.
need. And like,
yeah, you need an alarm clock. That's one thing. And the other thing that's really great, and it's like a very simple thing, and like you'll
Yes.
hear people say it's not going to cure all, but it's a good one.
tell me,
Is like the visual timers for kids. So
what are
one,
you talking about?
so it's like a timer Okay. And it
Okay.
like, you turn it and it's like a rainbow, and it like shows like, okay, so 15 minutes you see the rainbow like that. And then 30 minutes you see more of the rainbow. And then as it goes, the rainbow goes smaller. So you see, it visualizes time. It's
Yeah.
like making time more concrete. And for the ADHD brain, which time is like this vast, like it's a very hard, and this is why I also have a little bit, I know I have an ADHD brain because I'm always late. Like even today,
Welcome
I'm
to the
always
club.
late.
Yeah.
Right. And it's always like, oh, I have enough time for that. Like I have difficulty estimating how long things will take.
Everything takes 15 minutes, doesn't
Right?
It takes 15
And
minutes.
even if
to
I
get everywhere.
try my best, it doesn't matter how hard I try. I'm good. Like I'm often
You're
late.
preaching to the choir.
And it's again that difficulty like predicting and
then you are late.
knowing, and then you feel bad, and then you're like, I'm a dick, and maybe we shouldn't say dick, but
oh, I don't care. Dick, it's fine.
but yeah,
I feel like this is a dick in my face right now. It's so close. But yeah.
But so really that externalizing the visual time is really helpful.
That's
so in
good.
the
I'm thinking like a
morning
cooking
even,
timer. Like I don't
it's
even
like
know.
a cookie timer.
Yeah, that's what
I'll show you a link.
Okay,
yeah,
this is
it's very
good.
very easy
For me and
then,
for them.
And yeah, in the morning. So we're like, okay, guys, our we have 45 minutes before school, right? Or 15 minutes to eat our breakfast. Here's a
And I'm
timer.
just walking
And you're
around
watching
to the
it.
room,
There's like everybody has their own
Yeah,
whatever,
okay.
whatever you want to do. But like it helps them to also start to understand time better too. Like
Okay.
when you visualize, and for yourself, yeah, like alarm clock. So for the phone, like we can talk about screens, and that's like a kind of a
I
separate
want to
thing,
kind of
which
get there
we
separately
can.
because
But yeah, if you don't want to have your phone by your bed at night because then you're tempted to scroll morning and the night,
yes,
then charge it downstairs and have an alarm clock.
so that's just what I'm missing.
Yeah,
so I've got
yeah.
two things going into my cart now after this conversation. There might be more. And the other thing that you mentioned before when we were talking, not here today, was that with your daughter, I don't know if you want to bring this up or just like something, because I like think I'm going to try to implement this because I got like a hockey net set up downstairs and my kids are so into hockey now. And
This is a good one.
specifically my eldest, who's like, I find he really needs to exert this energy. So he's always like trying to do hockey. I'm like, but you can't do hockey when we're trying to get to school.
Right.
Like that's not fair. And like, that's always when it happens, right? The arguments.
right.
But so he's like, wake me up 20 minutes early, but he's the one that needs the most sleep. So then I try to wake him up. He's not getting out of bed.
Yeah.
And then he's mad at me
Right.
that we're not playing hockey. But I'm
Yeah.
like, but I think activity in the morning.
Yes.
I've read so much for myself, getting sunlight, activity for,
Yes.
it's important. But
yes.
when you're at home and you have several other children, I can't just go and take a nice little stroll down the street. I've got 3 kids sleeping at home, or he can't just go out and run around the park. Like we're not in a world where that exists right now. So
That's right.
what are we doing in the morning to keep busy, make our bodies feel moving?
Yeah.
Like they're going from this to then sitting in a chair at school all day too, let's think. So like,
which is not how boys' brains work in general, and nor is it how like ADHD brains work, is sitting in a chair. It's so hard. And like, again, I'm really into evolutionary psychology. So like back in the day, we didn't do this as a species. We were out, the hunters and gatherers, we're on the land, we're learning, we're not sitting in chairs for 8 hours a day. That is not what we're programmed. That's not how our brain have developed.
And fight or flight, let's go there for 1 second talking about that, right? Because that's totally, our bodies used to trigger to an actual fear, someone coming to eat you and your family or kill you.
You need to run fast.
Now it's literally back to kind of decision fatigue. They say, I don't know what it is, but apparently you make like 2,000 decisions before like 8 a.m. every morning, depending on what time you get up. But like you look at your phone, it's true. Am I emailing that person back? Am I not? Am I gonna blow dry my hair this morning or not? Am I taking the time to floss? Like, and then never mind that I'm horrible with time perception.
Yeah. And you get overwhelmed for sure.
But the fight or flight thing is a real thing. And I think we're constantly in fight or flight now. Yeah. Whereas in like back to evolutionary, and I'll let you go there, they weren't. So like, what were they doing that was a little bit more like they used to be like, that's why you shouldn't eat before bed, because they used to eat when the sun went down, and that's when they would go to bed.
Yeah, and that's why our
no
bodies
one had digestive issues.
Yeah,
it's kind of simple.
Well, it is simple, and like so some of the things that we're going to talk about it too, like when we're looking at holistic approach, we're thinking, okay, so how do we balance the brain and the mind and the body and everything?
Yeah,
by using all these different things that we have at our disposal that are easy. So do you want me to first talk about exercise?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go with exercise.
And then we're going to go back to fight or flight and
fight or flight, and then we're going to iPads because both of our we need like a checklist. That's what I need right now.
We did 17 episodes. Okay. So
exercise in the morning.
So we have meds, we have parent training, and another big thing of parent training is like catching your kids when they're doing the opposite thing. So when they're on task. Okay.
Complimenting, giving them positive
you're like giving them a lot of positive, and that's catching them when they're being good is a critical one, which we often ignore
Right.
because we don't have time to catch them when they're good.
Right. And you're just
right?
almost like a
But it
moment of
works-
peace. And you're just like, this is
works
nice.
so well.
Right. Okay.
Even just like try to get 10 positive comments in the day to all your kids. Like just like positive.
That's nice. That's
Okay?
a good way to think of it. Just 10,
Yeah.
spread them around.
Yeah, spread them around, right?
Eat live if you need
Yeah.
to.
It could be as easy as like,
Yeah.
oh my God, you're eating your cereal quickly. Yay.
Yeah,
Good job.
like,
right.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
so
okay,
simple little
yeah.
things. Right. Okay. So then now we're going to go to like physical. Okay. So for my daughter, so
Yes.
I learned about, exercise being important. And so for my daughter, I was like, okay, how am I going to do this?
Okay.
Because already like her school starts early. Like she has to be on the bus by like 7:20.
Oh, shit.
And I'm not a morning person. So like
Oh, wow.
my husband is the one that
Helps
does
out
the
in the morning. Okay,
morning.
good,
Like he's
good.
an angel and
Yeah.
he'll tell me every day that he does this.
Good.
But which,
I mean,
thank
you need
God,
the help. You're a
because
team like that. That's great, though.
I couldn't. Like honestly, it's very hard for me to get into bed like
I hear
early
you.
enough to
Yeah.
wake up at 6. So what we've been doing is just like, and again, it's using tech. So it's like,
Yeah.
but we've been using like online. There's like certain Danny Go, Danny
Yeah,
Go.
yeah.
And so she's been doing that. So that's the first thing. She gets up, she puts on her clothes that
Okay.
she have put out the night before. Because
Right.
for us, that's a critical because
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
always
I do
like,
that
this
too.
is
It just-
itchy.
yeah.
I don't like these socks. And that's like 25
5
minutes.
minutes
We
of
can't
bullshit.
have that.
Yeah.
So we're doing all that at night.
Okay, good.
And trying it on and making sure that's what we want. And that's it. And then we're not changing once it's out.
Yep.
So she's getting on her clothes and she goes immediately downstairs and she picks whatever activity she wants to do. And she's doing it in front of the TV for 20 minutes.
Great.
Okay. Then she's eating. Then she's going. And now if you have kiddos that love sports, right? Like my younger daughter loves sports.
Yeah.
It could be going downstairs and
Playing hockey,
playing
basketball,
Yeah,
doing
playing
whatever,
basketball.
kicking the soccer ball.
Exactly. But you have to put it into the schedules, right?
Like
so
you're
you
going
have
downstairs
to,
now with your timer
That's
for
right.
15 minutes and you're saying, Care, this is your 15 minutes. You're getting it this morning.
Yeah.
Let's go.
go hard.
And you're coming up when the 15 minutes
Yeah,
is done.
Yeah. And
Okay.
you can reward. And like, again, with ADHD, sometimes we need to reward with like a tangible and that's okay. If you
Yeah.
want, if it's like, no, mom, I don't want to do that in the morning. It's like, okay, let's just try it.
Yeah.
And we want them always try to get the kids involved in the plan. Right. So
Right.
I told like Fiona, I'm like, listen, my daughter, I'm like, listen, this is going to help your brain concentrate during the
Right.
day. Cause she told me, she's like, sometimes it's hard. It's boring. I'm not concentrating.
Right.
I was like, okay, this is something I know it's going to help. So let's try this. How do you want to do it? You tell me how you want to do it. And like you go going back, you're collaboratively coming up.
I love that. You know
the
why
plan.
also, T? Because then it's also like, you're not wasting that energy creating a plan that's not going to fucking work. I spent
Exactly.
half the time making up this grand scheme of something that I think is going to work for the whole family.
Yeah.
And then I include them. And then they're like, no, well, I didn't want to sign up for tennis. You'd even ask me. And I'm like,
Right.
you are right. You're the one doing the activity. Like,
Yeah.
and then that will go to like this control thing, right?
100%.
And you don't want to be controlling your kids every second of the day. Nobody wants to be doing that. That's not what I was put here to do. Just
No.
controlling these little minions running around. I want to help foster an environment for them to be safe and have fun and
That's
learn how
right.
to be adaptable to this world. So I love
exactly
that. I
it.
think including them, I think that's so key, including them in part of the planning.
And that's with everything, I would say. Like,
Yeah.
I'm always recommending, like, even with consequences, it's like, okay, girl, you lied about this.
You know.
You know this is against, what do you think your consequence should be? Like, you know what I
Ah.
mean? And they're like, and they'll come up actually with pretty good
Or like
consequences.
my iPad.
Yeah, like no, but sometimes and then if they generate that, you're way more likely to follow through because
True.
it's their idea,
True.
right? And they felt like no one likes to be told what to do. Let's be realistic.
Yes.
Like even me, like I'm somewhat oppositional. If someone's like forcing something down my throat, I'm like, no,
No, you're gonna just reject
even
just
if-
cause.
Even if,
Just
just
'cause.
because we want to have autonomy. Everyone wants to have
100,
autonomy.
That's very true.
Kiddos too, right?
Exactly.
So especially 2 or 3-year-olds, like younger kiddos, because they're going through those stages, right? So you really want to include
Give
them in the
that voice.
yeah.
Give them their voice.
include them in the decision, and then you come up with a plan, and then you execute it, and you
Okay.
help them execute it. You're a shepherd, right? You're
their
trying.
shepherd. That's a good, yeah.
yeah, that's again the Dr.
Yeah, like or
Barkley
like
thing.
like someone
Yeah.
gave me the example of like because the control is a huge thing, especially with ADHD
Mhm.
or someone that's even a first time parent or even just parents don't know what the hell they're doing, right? You never get a course on how to be a parent.
No.
You just
No one
wake
knows
up one
what they're
day,
doing.
you poop out a baby, and then you have to take care of it.
Right.
But someone gave me the example of like in a tea tree dish, like it's like tea tree,
yeah.
petri dish.
Yeah.
That like they're in there.
Yeah.
They're in a contained environment,
That's
but
right.
you're not controlling specifically what's happening with each of them.
Yeah.
You know, you can put things in that environment
Yeah.
that will help foster their
Yeah.
growth, encourage this or that, but you're not, they're doing their own things and their little cells are going to multiply or do whatever. So
That's right.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges because parents try to control and they're not collaborative.
Yeah.
And I really like what you just said. I think that would take a lot of stress away.
And I think parents have this delusion
Yeah.
that if we control all these things, we can like change the child. We can like control, if we do all these things, they won't have ADHD anymore. Like your child is your child, right? They're born with this temperament, and temperament is something that's like not fully, like that is who they are.
Right.
Sure, you can guide them this way or that way. You're not going to
changing.
totally change them. You're not going to turn a cat into a dog,
Right.
as they
and
say.
people need to stop and think about themselves. You're not your friend. You're not your parents. You're not your sibling.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
Sometimes nothing like them. Sometimes a lot like them. So
enjoy the kid you have.
right.
Help
Enjoy
them
the kid you
do
have,
the best they can in the environment. And sure, like it's like middle path. Yes, you want to give some sort of, you want to give them guidance. You want to have structure, but it's not, you don't want to do it overkill.
Okay.
Right?
No,
then
100%.
you're gonna get
that makes total sense. And I think those are all really, like we've talked about, really key things that are, once again, they don't require a big budget.
No.
They don't require a lot of stressors, to be honest. You don't have to go out and do 1,000 things. A lot of these things that you're recommending are easy tactics that you can just do in your house. Pay a little more attention, focus a little bit, and then go to step 2 if something's not working. Right?
Yeah.
If some of this stuff isn't regulating enough, you're trying these things at home, going to sleep, getting up early, doing things with executive functioning, then it might be time to talk to a doctor about, we've done this, maybe the placebo effect, maybe a little bit more. But unless you've like gone through certain tactics on your own, I feel like you're never going to feel good about just putting a pill down someone's throat. That's at least how I feel. Like, unless the symptoms are so severe that it's not. So I think that was, at least for me, and I think a lot of people, even with kids that aren't neurodiverse, those are very good takeaways that every kid needs. Sleep,
sleep.
Getting out their
exercise,
energy,
so
right?
more exercise, as much outdoor playtime as you can get. That's going to benefit you.
So this is actually a good segue. Yeah, and one more.
I'm going to tell you one more thing. So nutrition. So trying to cut out like the really high preservative foods, like processed foods. Trying to limit them. Trying to limit like gluten, dairy, because what we know about ADHD now, where we're learning more, and there's like this whole field of like nutritional psychiatry, is that there is some links to inflammation and gut biome and stuff like that. So, when there is a recent study, Dr. Mark Hyman, who's like a functional medicine doctor who's excellent, and just posted about this, is like 100 kids who had ADHD and they cut out the ultra processed food, gluten, dairy, and other inflammatory foods. And they found that there was like almost 70% decrease in symptoms after a few weeks of ADHD.
Wow.
Right? Just the dietary.
From dietary things.
So could be, and again, partly is like we're thinking neuroinflammation might have to do with it. Not that it's going to cure your ADHD, but it's a part. So if you're trying to eat clean, and again, you can't do everything. It's so hard. Me and my friend always talk about it. It's like, we're eating clean, we're sleeping, we're like 12 hours. It's like that. None of you become stressed about that. But it's as best as you can implement, right? That will help. And then there's some supplementation who, again, I'm not like a naturopath or anything. So if you really want to get into this, you're going to go see a naturopath. Yeah. But some of the like main ones that are very like well known, and there's research, is like omega-3 fatty acids, giving them omega, giving them magnesium, zinc, and iron. Like those are some basic supplements that can help with ADHD and attention. So again, these are kind of like some building blocks we want, right? Yeah. And then, safety, security, the relationship, having a good relationship at home, knowing your parenting, you know what to do with structure and consistency, your parenting things. And then we want to talk about play.
So with the free play thing, I'm finding it just really overwhelming because I want my kids to have that structure, and I want the ability, if he's great at hockey or tennis or soccer, to be able to exude energy, be in sports, have fun. Yeah. But it's at the point now where everyone is putting their kids in 1,000 different programs.
Yes.
Everyone's skiing every weekend, doing rep hockey at the age of 8. Everyone's in competitive dance. It's probably more of a me thing versus on the kids, to be honest. Like, I'm trying to like compensate for my kids to be on track and do what everyone else is doing. I'm feeling overwhelmed on social, seeing everyone else's kids succeed and Kumon or this or that. There's just so much pressure. And when we think about evolution and back in the day and where kids are the happiest, it's always when they're outside just playing and being. And as a parent, I even have a hard time, and this is just me being really honest, and this is like so on me. This has nothing to them. I'm sitting in the house. My kids are playing dogs. They love to be dogs these days, okay? I don't even have a dog right now, but they love to be a dog. My youngest is always a dog, just sitting there. I'm like, okay, this is so weird. Like, I guess I'm not going to pretend and be a dog with you, but this is just what you like to do. This is fun for you. And my other son likes to be.
But you could be a dog with. You
Okay.
could be a dog
Okay,
with him.
Okay, so if I wanted to play in that regard,
Yeah,
I could.
you could.
But the point of the control and the free play was
Yeah.
that like I also just have such a hard time watching them do something stupid. Like I want to.
You have
if
this judgment that is like, this is a waste of time.
Like,
then
are
you're
we
being a
building
dog.
Lego? If I walked out of the house, I'm like, okay, if I'm on my walk for 30 minutes and I
Yeah.
knew that they were playing or building a Lego or working towards something, I would feel way better than them just sitting there pretending to be a dog.
Right.
But that's only on me. Wesley's the dog leader, and then they switch. And then I'm standing there like a jackass being like, well, I don't know what to do with my 30 minutes now because they're home from school. They should feel in the safe space. And we don't have a program tonight. And then
Yeah.
we have dinner and all these other things that are structured. Why can't he just be a dog playing? And then
Yeah.
I'm sitting there not knowing what to do. And this is all a me thing. Like I could go into my office and do some work. I could go on a walk, but I'm sitting there trying to control them, not do what they want to do. And all they're doing is doing free play.
Got it.
And so then even the idea of free play has some type of negative,
Right.
like, I don't know why I'm even thinking like that. It doesn't feel like it's legit enough.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And I'm
I-
like, that's fucked up. Like
I'm
these kids are just, they're having so much fun.
Yeah.
And then I come here trying to boss them around and they don't want to hear anything to do with it.
Right.
They're not even trying to watch TV. They're literally playing dog. And I'm
That's
like,
lovely.
that doesn't feel like that's doing much for you.
So we have so we think as a society, this is not you're not alone in this. Okay, I'll tell you, you're not alone in
Okay.
this. We have the grind culture.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is like again a westernized thing.
Yes.
Which is
glorifying the grind.
Yeah, which is like, oh my God, if this is not in line, setting you up to, go to Harvard, then when you're 8, then we're not doing it, right? It's
Right.
like always about like achievement. And again, like we are also like at a stage in existence where we have like the highest levels of depression, anxiety, and nobody's happy. Okay. So it's this grind culture
Isn't working.
is not working.
Yeah.
The grind is going to grind you into the grave early and make you sad. And, we really have to go back to our roots again.
Yeah.
And play is something that is so critical for brain development in children. And we have lost sight of the importance of play.
Yeah.
Okay. And, myself included, and there's a really great podcast, a child psych podcast,
Okay.
and they have a lot, they're like play therapists, experts in play. They have a lot of clinicians come on and talk about the powers of play, how to use play in discipline. And we can
Okay.
talk a little bit about play in general, but play, we know from research, is like a critical factor for brain development. Okay.
So I should let them be dogs.
And it's on the outside, it might just look silly, but
Silly,
they are
yeah.
cultivating, they are integrating top and bottom, left and right sides of their brain. They are learning social skills. They are learning how to regulate their emotions.
Yeah.
They are being creative. They are planning ahead. They're helping with their executive functioning skills development, right? All of these really critical things are happening during free play. Even on the outside, it seems silly. And we kind of have to change our own judgment, right? And perception about free play. And I felt the same way, I think, a while ago until I learned more about free play. And then now if I see my kids actually doing free play well, like when you're telling like, oh, they're playing together and they're acting dogs, I'm like, oh my God, I would be so happy.
No, and
Like,
it's
I'm
a
begging
peaceful
them.
moment.
Yeah,
It is, and I just like appreciate
enjoy
that.
it. Just sit back. You don't have
Right.
to do anything.
Or I guess like even
Do
back in the
nothing.
day, you could send them outside and they play and they come back when the lights go out.
Yes.
Right? They come home when it
And
gets
you
dark.
probably did that. And I know I did that.
I like fake did it, which is why I think I'm screwed up. Like I lived far away from my friends and my mom had to drive me everywhere. But
Right,
I think
right.
when my friends that all lived close to each other and
Yeah.
had the neighborhood friends
yeah.
and did that was the best thing for them.
The best.
And we all can recognize that and address it. And even from adults, we know when we have free play, whatever that means,
Yeah.
going out drinking with friends, hanging out, being in
Yeah.
nature,
That's
like
play. Yeah.
that's play. That's adult play. And
It
there's
fills
nothing
your
and
bucket.
it's something I crave more.
Yes. Exactly.
So like it's ironic. It is that
It
you
is
know what I
ironic.
mean? How and I spent my whole life in that grind, getting away from it. And
Yeah.
like, this is back to the control thing. And as a parent, like feel so much pressure to make these children become the best versions of themselves.
Yeah.
And I don't even know what that means. Because to me, having Xander go to Harvard and get his PhD and do this, if that's what he wants, cool.
Sure.
But I would be happy with him being happy.
You want them to do something that they're passionate about, that they like, and
Right.
you want them to be happy.
Let's link that a little bit to social media for a second, because I want to talk about social and iPads and a little bit of technology, because that's just like, I think a good place to kind of
Beast
end.
that we're going to
I know.
open.
So we'll try to narrow it down, but I think it's a really hard thing as a
Yes.
parent, because it's become one of our most like biggest tools. And there's so many great programs that's available. And
Yeah.
same with social. This is not to shit on all social. There's such good resources for social.
Yes.
It's an amazing way to launch a business, market yourself. But when it gets down to the comparison, the self-doubt, all that other stuff is where we go sour, right?
Yes.
And it's not really understanding that limitation. And I'm guilty as charged. I ran a business. I was living into this kind of influencer life and doing all these things. And as much fun as I had doing all these things, I was doing the grind and it wasn't filling my cup, right? And so now I want to ensure that was not happening for my kids and for me. But there's this whole balance. So when they get home from school and when I want time for myself and I don't want to be, and I want them to live life and not feel left out. So are you the person that's never going to give them a phone or never going to give them an iPad? Or what are the limitations around it? And how detrimental are some of these smartphones and tools to our health right now?
So big questions here. And what you're saying I think are on the minds of every parent.
Yes.
Okay. And unfortunately, we're not going back to the dark ages.
No.
Okay. Technology is here to stay.
Yeah.
It's like we need a middle path. Okay.
Yes.
So yes, there is research to suggest that excessive use of technology in children and youth does contribute to higher levels of depression and anxiety. Okay.
Yes.
And
that's on the rise.
Yeah. And can be, with certain types of brains, it becomes like more of an addictive kind of circle.
Yes,
right.
yes.
And if you're like going on the more extreme end, people are really against using technology. They'll say, there's studies where you have fMRIs and MRIs of brains. So like just images of brains.
Yeah.
fMRI, an individual who's gaining a drug addict is using drugs and he has like same areas are lit up to a kid who's gaming, right? Those like dopamine, like reward centers, right? Which is scary to think about it that way, right?
100%.
And then you're like, yeah, that makes sense because they're like so into it and addicted, especially to kiddos with ADHD brains are more prone for excessive technology use and gaming because it's that. So with ADHD brains, as we kind of talked about before, more prone or easily reinforced by like short-term like rewards, right? So I do something, I get it. And these games are all about short-term rewards, right? Like you're walking, you get a ding, ding, ding. And you're like, they collect these like little whatever. I'm not a gamer, but you know what I'm saying.
No,
it's like
it's validation
like,
right
it's
there.
Like they're getting rewards every second in these games, right? So it pulls them in versus like long-term rewards, which is much harder. So yes, gaming and screen time, especially like phones and iPads can become problematic. And I think it's unreasonable to say we're like, oh, we're just going to take away screens forever and right. We're not
doing that. We can't. They
So,
use it in school. Like half their homework is now on the iPad. I'm like,
yes, we're in a digital, again, I use technology myself every day for it, but it's a tool, right? Versus like, something that is going to be for self-soothing. We don't want our kids like to only be able to self-soothe through technology. We want them to have different coping skills to be able to calm their bodies that are not technology.
Yes.
And we want them, the other question is like, if they're only on their iPad or watching TV or gaming, then they're losing out on all the other things they need to be doing, which is interacting with their kids, free play, physical exercise, right? So because there's only so many minutes in a day, right? They can't, so you have to, structure in your like how I'm doing it is like I structure in some screen time for my kids, right? And it's like, so my kid, right when she gets home from school, she really wants that like 15, 20,
me too. That's what I was going to say.
Screen time.
Or you do fit. I literally give them an hour.
It doesn't matter. The time is like different ages, different whatever, right? So we try like about a half an hour. Sometimes it's an hour, right? Like, but again, it's more of like you have a kind of a limit set that you're going to do it the same every time.
Yeah, I'll bring out my little timer that I'm getting.
They get they get their screen time, and then they're going to do they do their Kumon or their homework, and then they're going to go the rest of the night. They're going outside and they're doing a play, or you have your activity or whatever. Right. Okay, so but it's in there intentionally, right? It's in there in a controlled manner, and you are now when they get older, right? There's like decisions on when you give them the phone, right? And because once they have their own phone, then it's a little bit different, right? And then
because the control's in their hand.
Yes. So then there's like ideas around that. There's also like you want to prep them for the digital world, so there's like these conversations that you need to have. There's a really I think it's called Raging Digital Citizens. It's like a card game, and it has like these cards, and I can give you the link, but it's has like I think it's the same person who does the Danish parenting stuff. And there's like cards about questions around digital use,
Right.
and you do them with your kids. Maybe they're a little bit too old for our kids, but soon they will be.
Right.
And it's like having these conversations around like, how do we control our screen time? And how do we behave online? Because there's
Right.
also this whole thing about like cyberbullying and like posting inappropriate content, and like you want them to be able to navigate the digital world well and be a
Yes.
good digital citizen and be able to control, again, have their own self-control.
Yes.
Right. You don't want to be the external always control of you want them to learn.
Because that's not resilience.
Right?
That's not resilient. That's not teaching them to be resilient.
That's
if you're always
right.
having to implement it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So back to like, so the phones is like, okay, and then you have to live what you preach.
Right.
So
If you're going to be that moron stuck to your
that's
phone,
right.
then and I've been there, and
That's
like
right.
I've been there, and it's the worst feeling in the world, actually.
And sometimes you need, like, sometimes having like a phone box, even though it sounds like so insane,
No, it's not. They do that at certain restaurants, and I kind of think it's a vibe.
but sometimes that's helpful for restraint, right? Because, and I actually do that in a way, like when I'm working, because I will get like, I'll be like, oh, Instagram, like if I'm like doing something boring, oh, I'm running a report, this is hard, this is long, it's boring.
Naturally,
Of
you're going
course.
somewhere else.
And I know that disrupts my flow. And so I put my phone, like I'll either lock it, like zip it in my purse so it's away from me, or I'll put it in a different room, because I know for me, like the same, the pull is the same. So we have to help our kids develop
Right.
those ways of like when they get the iPad away. And then I tell my daughter too, and like, I'm like, the iPad, right? And the screen, if it's too much, it's not good for your brain.
Right. And
I just
that's
say it's not good for your
and you
brain.
know what? That's the key back to what we talked about before,
Yeah.
was like including them. We're talking to them like we're raising these people. They're humans. They understand things. They make their own decisions.
That's right.
So include them in it. Like
That's
when
right.
I tell my kids, like they wanted this one fruit drink in the morning, and they like the one that has way more sugar in it. And
Yeah.
I've just been starting based on this, and nutrition has become more important to me and my family
Right,
recently.
Right.
So now I'm really looking at the ingredients. So I opted for a new one. I give it to my kids the first day. He spits it all
Of
over my
course,
beautiful
of
new
course.
kitchen. I'm like, and it's brown, which is maybe they should add some. No, that would
Color.
add, yeah, but that would probably make it bad. So it's brown.
Yeah.
And I sat him down and I said, "Listen, you didn't even give it a second. I mean, it didn't taste as good as the other one.
Yeah.
But what this is going to do, it's going to make your brain more capable to learn more today. This is going to make you feel like you have more energy." And I spoke to him like that. I turned around, the thing was
Who's
gone.
drinking it? Good.
And I
Lenny,
was
that's
like,
so
no,
good.
but it was just like all I
Yeah.
had to do was like give him like as an adult
give
and a
them the
parent, sometimes
evidence.
you're just so used to like
do it.
do it, right? Dictating the thing to them. And even with yourself, if I haven't just like stopped and thought like, oh, like, do I need to have this like Kit Kat? If I have that will make me feel better.
Yeah.
It's just how aware are you going to be in a lot of these moments,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And again, like I think it's brilliant giving them the data of why you're making these decisions, and then even like saying, okay, like these are the decisions, this is why I'm doing it, and then leaving it up to them, coming back and then seeing, and usually they choose the right thing. And I always
It's
find
so surprising.
like,
but
and sometimes I'm like, I'm in a rush, so I just want to tell them to do the thing and I'll be like, "Mommy knows. Mommy's a psychologist. Mommy knows.
Yes,
just listen to me. I
yes.
went to," and that doesn't work.
No.
She doesn't care. She's like,
No.
"No, Mommy, I know.
Yeah.
I'm 7
There's
and
like
I
no
know."
ego with that. They don't give a shit.
So
Yeah.
it's like, it's better to feed them the information, explain, why, the reasoning, the rationale behind, and say, so this is why I'm thinking this, right? So
Yeah.
what do you think? And then allowing them to come in line
with their own decision.
Yeah,
and
because
like,
they're smart.
And,
They're
and,
smart.
and with all these things, no matter what we're talking about, the iPad, whether they have neurodiverse or not,
Mhm.
giving what I've really taken away from this, which I think is really empowering, is that give a little bit of that power, take away that power from yourself and give it to your kids. We don't need it all, and it's not serving us well.
Mhm.
Once that control and
That's
that
right.
power, those barriers come down a bit, and there's like more community. It's like with anything in life. If you're fighting with someone, beefing, if you're not explaining to them your perspective in a slow, rational way
Yeah.
of why you're feeling upset, if you're speaking quickly, if you're just yelling at them, that's never going to get your point across. You seem anxious. You seem not composed. You feel like you're, so it's not that this is rocket science, a lot of
Yeah.
these things,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
being a parent, there's so much of a responsibility and obligation and pressure to do things a certain way that it's almost like the most basic things get thrown out the window.
That's right. That's right. We lose sight of really
We
what
lose
we're doing
sight
here.
of just literally talking commonsensical things to your child.
And again, we are the shepherds. We're not, like Dr. Barkley says, like we're not the architects. We're not the engineers. You are just shepherding, guiding your child. Okay?
Right.
Your child is who they are. They are a person. They have their own wants, needs, and we have to respect them. And they
Yeah.
have their own intuition and their own. So we are just trying to guide them the best way we can. We're not controlling them. because guess what? The more external control you have on your kids, so your kids are doing things because you're the one setting them up, you're the one prompting them, external prompts, external brain all the time. The minute you're gone, what do you think that they're going to be okay?
No. And they're going to probably reject it and push hard the other way too, right? Because if that's just being like what we talked about before, just telling someone to do something, being adversarial, or what's the word? Just like being like, just having that, like that authority over something does not feel good. No. You want to feel equal to people.
And exactly. And so, and it's also in this, like the Danish way of parenting is like, kids are, smart, capable people. We're going to give them their decision, their autonomy. We're going to loop them in. And again, that's helping them develop their own self-regulation skills. So they know. So like when the most proud I am is when my daughter comes and it's like, Mommy, I ate all my vegetables first. And now I'm going to eat my like whatever pizza because like, I know that that's going to fuel my body. And again, I talk to her, like I'm very careful about like, you don't want to like, eating disorders. You want to like shame all the bad food, but I'm just like, these are fruits, vegetables, protein, dairy, like all these things. These are what's going to fuel our body. And like this processed stuff, like sure, it's sometimes yummy, food and it's yummy. Everyone loves it, and it's not going to do the same thing. So we're going to like fill up on this first, and then like you can have your treat, right? Whatever. But so, and again, explaining her why we're saying this decision first, like you can't have, it's bad, right? And now she's choosing the decisions,
and then her younger sister is seeing her say that and following her lead. So it's like this big cyclical like.
And you want to like you said, raise happy, healthy kids who are able to make some of these decisions by themselves.
Yeah.
And you. Guess what? That means less pressure on you.
Yeah,
right?
Go steam the vegetables too while you're at it. Why don't you go take care of dinner?
Yeah, make me a salad.
I'll be here watching my iPad.
Yeah, but it does work also to take some pressure off yourself.
100%.
Right?
No,
to realize
all this stuff makes so much sense. It's like it's obviously so valuable coming from you because it's the research and the science. But I think the digestible part for me is that a lot of this stuff doesn't have to cost a lot of money and doesn't have to be rocket science. It literally just takes a little bit more patience and planning.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's in line with your intuition, I hope.
Yeah.
Like, what you would be like, this feels better. Once you get more balance and then it's like, okay, this feels better when you're not pushing so much all of the
and then you can actually see
stuff.
The results of what you're doing. And I think that, like you said, when your daughter comes up to you and says that proud moment. So I feel like for me, honestly, I haven't even looked at my notes because I feel like we talked about so organically all of literally my big questions that I had. And I think this was really important. So Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. It was amazing to have you. I've learned so much. I'm sure other people will as well. And I don't know, maybe we'll get you back on here. This was so natural. It's been Stabbing with a friend. This was great.
Very lovely. You're a great mom. I wanted to say that too.
Aw,
and
thanks.
I think that this was less anxiety provoking.
Good. That was my goal in life. So
It
we're
was
good.
It was
Anyways,
good.
thank you, babe.
Yeah, no worries.